Assalamu alaikum again, Brother Umar. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. And the very first question which I would like to ask you is, brother, of course, you are a very important and very popular figure as far as the Islamic finance and Islamic fintech industries are concerned. But for the benefit of those viewers who don't know you, could it be possible for you, please, to introduce yourself as to who you are and what kind of company, as far as this is concerned, what kind of company is it? What is its mission and vision? And why did you start the company?
Thank you for the question. Salam everybody, and it's great to be here. My name is Umar Munshi. I'm a Singaporean, although I've been doing business and living overseas for quite some time. Right now, I've been in Malaysia for the past 6 years. And as a quick introduction, I'm essentially an entrepreneur. I've been an entrepreneur since I was a teenager, all the way until today. And all the while, my focus has always been on running my own business or starting up my own business that is a combination of impactful and also disruptive. And 12 years ago, I started on my journey in Islamic finance when I discovered it. And 10 years ago, the first iteration of Ethis was launched in Singapore. Back then, initially, it was a private investment group or club, and we invested into companies and projects in the region. Now, fast forward, 10 years. Today, we have multiple brands and presence in many different countries. We are also regulated and licensed in a few different countries as well. So as we go, I believe I'll share more about Ethis itself, about Hasan VC, which is a new brand, and also Global Sedekah. But maybe as a summary to give an understanding of what we do, whatever platform, whichever country, whichever brand, for us as a group, we do one main thing, which is we match those with capital, whether you have big money or small money, whether you're an individual or an institution. We facilitate or we match your funds to businesses, companies, and causes. Right? So we just match excess money that's looking for a good place to go to where it makes a huge impact and also potentially creating good profits. Yeah, so that's in summary what we do. A few ways of phrasing it is we engage in the private capital market or alternative investments and finance.
Thank you, Brother Omar, for a great introduction. And, few days ago, what happened is that basically we published a news story about Hasan VC fund and Accelerator. And of course, we got a lot of questions, but in the beginning, I wanted you to elaborate on this concept and as to why you started this and what is the concept of it, what you're trying to achieve by initiating this launch.
Sure. So maybe adding on a little bit to what I mentioned earlier, then jumping into Hasan to answer your question. So we match funds to good projects, companies, and causes. And if you break it down further, there's investment and there's social funds, right? And within investment, there's financing, which is more short-term and temporary. People are more familiar with the term lending. Of course, we do it Islamic financing. And then there's also equity, right? Now, Hasan is the evolution of the equity piece, right? And before I jump into Hasan, I want to highlight what's different about what we do, where impactful, sustainable, and all those things are there. But the DNA, the deeper underlying fundamental approach is we strive to bring what's already there in Islamic finance in terms of the theory, the concept, the wisdom, the beauty of Islamic finance. We manifest it in the real world. And this is something that was challenging for the traditional banks to do for various reasons. But with fintech, we see that it can be done and we have been doing it, right? So that's what we do. Now, for Hasan specifically, it's a new brand. It just started this year. However, the activities have been ongoing, similar activities have been ongoing for the past 5 years within the Ethis group. We have had an angel group and we've run a few accelerators, right? But they were, efforts that were not consolidated. So what we decided was, let's come up with a new brand to consolidate all these efforts and structure it based on all our learnings over the last 5 years related to equity investment. So that's where Hasan has three components. We have the VC fund, we have the angel group, and we also have the business accelerator. So these three parts mutually reinforce each other, where the angel group is the source of investment capital, as well as certain useful networks and support, right? So the investors, instead of investing company by company, which is what we used to do, and we still offer that, but now we have an additional, very powerful element where the angel investors, the individuals, family offices, and so on, can invest in our VC fund. It's a big difference, because when you invest in a VC fund, it is firstly professionally managed, and secondly, for us, for the Hasan VC fund, the first fund, we are targeting to invest in 40 to 50 halal technology companies and startups. So when our angel investors, which is a private group, when they invest in the fund, and the minimum we set for our members is not high, it's 10,000 US dollars. So when they invest 10,000 US dollars into the fund, that 10,000 US dollars is spread to a pool of 50 companies, up to 50 companies, right? And that is what we know over the years of experience and looking at market data. The key to success in investing in early stage, high growth, but highly risky companies is to diversify, right? So that's on the one part. Then, of course, we have the accelerator, because the other thing we've realized over the years is there's a lot of talent, huge potential in the Muslim world, but there lacks an ecosystem. There lacks knowledge, right? There's a lack of support group. So that's where the accelerator comes in to pull together this talent and to guide, help, train, and form relationships between them, right? So that we can all help each other and grow better and become more commercially sound and investable, such that the VC that we have, the VC fund, can then invest in the top graduates of every cohort. Yeah, so that's a quick summary in a nutshell for Hasan. I'll be happy to share more why now and why us, but in terms of what it is, that's the description.
Mashallah, you've been active in this Islamic fintech industry for such a long period of time. Um, I wanted to ask you, from 2016 to 2020, ED is focused on funding social housing in Indonesia, building close to 10,000 homes. Can you share more about this project and its impact on the community?
Sure. So this is what we were known for before the pandemic, and during and after the pandemic, we've adjusted our business model and focus accordingly. But yeah, this was our main activity for many years. And the reason why we did it was two. One reason, the first reason, of course, is impact, right, which I'll elaborate on. And the other reason also is because we realized at that time that especially Muslim investors, they are more familiar with real estate, right? And the perception is that the risks are lower because there's a physical asset, right? And that is true, but real estate is also something that takes a lot of time. Yeah. Now, back to the real estate impact. Now, Indonesia is a huge country, the biggest Muslim population in the world, and it has a large lower middle income group that's stable, right? So they are moving up and they are improving their lives, and they're getting out of absolute poverty, and they have a level of stability. So what we did was we saw in the market that there was already a very good program by the government to support social housing, and we saw a gap where we could come in to support to speed up the development and construction of homes. Right. So that's what we did. In terms of impact, getting a roof over your heads for the first time for a family that maybe for a few generations did not have a proper home. This has profound psychological impact on the people. It gives them, safety, security, stability, and also an asset that can help them in the future. So what we see is the impact is across the commercial impact, the economic impact. I mean, on these families, the societal family impact on them as well, right? On their children, on their future generations. So we believe that social housing is something that can help uplift families and communities, permanently, inshallah. And that's what we've seen in the past as well.
As you mentioned, that the main job of EDIS is to match global investors and donors to impactful projects in various parts of the world. So, how do
Yes.
you identify and select these projects to ensure they align with your mission and vision, the original mission of the company?
There are two parts to it. One is the regulations or the license, which allows us to do, a limited or fixed scope of activities, right? So in the past, when we first started, there were no regulations. We were before regulations. We were very early. So in a sense, we could do whatever we want. But as we progressed, regulations came in, and regulations in this space is, I would say, very heavy, right? Because the regulators, of course, want to protect the public and ensure that things are done properly. So that is something that sort of restricts what we can do in which country. However, from all the experiences, we've learned from all the experiences, and that's where Hasan today is global, potentially global. Today, we have launched recently our first accelerator cohort, and for that we make it regional because it makes sense to support companies in a particular region at a time, right? Instead of going too wide or spreading too wide. So the focus is on Southeast Asia, but Hasan has the potential and the capability to provide support and investment opportunities to any country or region in general, right? Yeah. So in terms of geography, that's the first thing. Now, in terms of the offerings, we look at three things. Definitely, very very important is the commercial side of things, right? Because investors, as you know, the name is investors, they are there to invest, and the nature of investing is to make returns. So that's part of it. A very important pillar, healthy returns, right? We're not offering get rich quick schemes and things like that. It's healthy, proper fundamental returns. Now,
Stable.
secondly, it is the secondly, it is the impact, right? There must be good social impact, significant impact. And when I use the word significant, it's not just immediate impact like, giving food to somebody in need, which is important and necessary, right? And that's done by Global Sedekah, right? But one of our platforms. But for Hasan and others, it's about having impact that endures, that continues, that builds up over time, right? It's not just a one-time impact; it's an impact for the future. And when you talk about the future, the longest future for all of us is the afterlife. So that's the third impact, the religious aspect. When I say religious, it could be having impact on Islam, on the Ummah, on lifestyles, or religious that in a way that is universal for humanity, right? What I mean by that is positive social impact, circulating good, and uplifting communities.
And Brother Umar, what strategies you've employed to attract a diverse range of funders, including high net worth individuals, foundations, institutions, and of course corporations as well? Why the reason I want to ask this question is basically, high, for example, let's say high net worth individuals, they are sitting in different parts of the world. For example, if they don't know you, why should they listen to you, and why should they be attracted to you? Because for an investor, the number one, the most important thing from investing perspective is that they should be able to see a good rate of return for their investment. So how would you attract those people, and what strategies so far have you employed to attract those kind of individuals as well as corporations?
I guess in general, it's not so easy to reach high net worth wealthy people. And traditionally, it's through relationships. You have to meet up with them many times, sit down with them many times, and so on. But we are an online business. We are a digital platform. And so what we've done is sort of a hybrid. In terms of brand and positioning, we have tried to be as authentic and straightforward as possible. Right, we cut out the fluff. Right, I appear to meet people in whatever I feel represents me best, which is usually my Hasan t-shirt, like what I'm wearing today. Of course, in some settings, I have to dress a little bit smarter. But my point is, we are sincere and authentic, right? That's very, very important. We portray what we are and what we do in the simplest and cleanest way, that's most accurate to reality. And that may not work for everyone, right? Because some people look for certain signals which to them indicate success, like luxury and certain kind of branding. But what we want is we want sincerity. We want to portray sincerity. We want to provide sincerity, and we want the investors to come in with sincerity. Because the thing is, we are not a huge financial institution, right? What we are is we are matching you to the real world. The company or the project you're investing in could be your neighbor or your cousin, or it could be the other end of the world, right? But we are matching you to real people, real business. So we need the investors to be real as well in that sense, right? To feel the affinity and the community that they are part of. So that's the first part. Now the other part, of course, is through word of mouth, through introductions to networks. Right? That is the most powerful thing about being a digital platform. When you get one member who comes in and who understands what we do, who appreciates what we do, and especially when they start making returns or they start seeing the impact, automatically they start introducing their friends. Yeah, so very interestingly, we've had investors from more than 50 countries. Um, and for example, initially we were focused on bringing funds to Indonesia. Most of them never invested in Indonesia before. A lot of them have never even been to Indonesia before, and they've not met us before. They just saw online, oh, this is a credible company doing an interesting project. They like the project, and we facilitate their investment. Right, so we're quite blessed in that sense, where people are attracted to what we do, and it sort of grows on its own.
That's really a marvelous achievement, Brother Umar. It's really
Yeah,
wonderful,
alhamdulillah.
amazing to know that, mashallah. And how does this? I think you have briefly mentioned about it, but let me rephrase the question. How
Sure.
does EDIS navigate the regulatory landscapes in various countries where you operate? And what are the key regulatory considerations you must adhere to before you make a decision that you got to start a project in a certain country?
Sure. Frankly, regulations take a lot of time, effort, and money to obtain licenses, especially when it comes to this kind of unique or new licenses, right? And regulators typically there'll be a certain cycle, and
Mhm.
different regulators are different. Some regulators may start off not so strict and then becoming stricter over time.
Mhm.
Some may start very, very strict, and once you're in and they are comfortable with you, then they are more business friendly in that sense, right? So different regulators are very different, but it is definitely an experience that we've learned a lot from dealing with regulators. Because our DNA is as a disruptive startup company where we try new things, we explore new things, and we go against the grain. But when there's regulations there, you're forced to comply to certain standards and certain ways of doing things, right? So to answer your question, how we do it is internally we develop the capability, and we also make sure that we have very good advisors and some of our board members who are very strong in governance, risk, and compliance, so that our young team that's learning as we go can also tap on their experience for many many years. Yeah.
Great. And sir, of course, you are operating in the Islamic fintech industry, and you make sure that everything is according to the Islamic Sharia principles. Do you have any mechanisms internally which you make sure by employing which you make sure that everything is working according to the Sharia principles and nothing goes against the basic Islamic finance principle rules?
Yes, very good question. So um, it's a continuous process. That's one thing I can say. And for us, I would segregate it to maybe two parts. One is internal, and the other one is external, right? External means that we have a third party, a Sharia advisory firm with a reputable Sharia advisor. It's called Adil Advisory. And there's a gentleman there, Mufti Yusuf, who has very deep experience in fintech and with ethics because we've been together for many years. And from they endorse and they do the formal endorsement and so on for our products and our platforms where applicable, right? However, at the same time, so that is very important, and that's what the regulators in some countries look at. You need to have a reputable, recognized Sharia advisor or Sharia advisory firm, right? And they are registered with the various different regulators as well. But in addition to that, we also internally uphold Islamic finance. We do two things. One is we try our best to employ Islamic finance graduates or students. Right? So we have about estimate of 30% of our workforce, those with what you call it, education and training in Islamic finance. Right? We even have masters, PhD students, and so on. Now, the other aspect is we internally also spread, share, and train each other about the principles of Islamic finance, which extends not only to the finance side of things, but also to the culture and the interaction of the company. We adopt the AOFE code of ethics for Islamic finance professionals, and we share that also with our team. So we try to develop it as much internally as well as relying on external parties.
Right. And another related question, which I think is important for a lot of people out there in the world, is that, of course, you briefly mentioned, you just mentioned about if a person cares about Sharia principles, then of course you got a lot of processes in house and as well as out of the company. You got the external Sharia advisory board working with you guys to make sure that everything is according to Sharia principles. But
Yes.
for those people, for non-Muslims, for example, who don't care much about Sharia, do you think that your products are still relevant to those people as well?
Yes, and in fact, we consciously try to also communicate what we do in a way that does not involve the faith component, more on the logic side of things, so that Muslims and non-Muslims and as well as Muslims can understand and appreciate what we are doing beyond just the terminology,
Mhm.
right?
Right.
And of course, sometimes when you brand something with religion, it may not attract those who are not from that religion, right? And
Yeah.
we want this to be for everyone because we believe that Islamic finance is for everybody, it's for humanity. It's just that the principles are based on a particular specific religion of Islam, but the principles in it and the wisdom in it is universal. It's for everyone.
They're
Right?
universal in nature and they're very ethical.
Yes, and we
There
have
shouldn't be
seen
any
that
doubt.
when we do explain in more detail to non-Muslims, they're highly appreciative of how it works. Like even something simple, let me give you an example. Even something simple like zakat or zakah is very profound because today the world is suffering from huge inequality because most governments tax income, but income is different from wealth, and zakat taxes wealth. So when I share with any economist or finance person who's non-Muslim or doesn't know about Islamic finance, this approach of taxing wealth instead of income, that will automatically, naturally, is a very practical way of redistributing wealth and preventing inequality. They are amazed at how simple yet powerful it is, right? So I think it's our duty to spread the strength and the solutions that Islamic finance has to a wider audience.
And you mentioned in the beginning that Hasan VC Fund is the latest and greatest, I hope, uh, project which you've been undertaking. You just started a few days ago. And apart from that very project, are there any other projects or maybe products you've been undertaking which are going on? And could you please elaborate on this issue as well?
Sure. So back to what we do, we facilitate investments
Mhm.
based on debt or finance, Islamic financing,
Right.
equity, and social finance, right?
Right.
And Hassan is the newest, and
Mhm.
maybe I will talk more about the evolution or the plan for Hassan because although you're asking for any other new products, but Hassan itself, we are just at step one right now, and there's a lot that we want to do. Yeah, so if you don't mind, maybe I can share more about Hassan itself.
Yes, please.
Okay, great. Now, so for Hassan, we are solving multiple things at the same time, right?
Mhm.
So, firstly, the world is looking for more ethical alternatives. The world, not just Muslims, right? The world. But especially for Muslims, when we have products and services that are conflicting or have friction with our beliefs and lifestyles, right? Because most of the technology products, for example, were not built with the Muslim lifestyle or Muslim or Islamic principles in mind. And for the wider public, it wasn't really built with ethics in mind, right? It's just how to make money and how to get more users, right? So that is the first thing that we are trying to solve. We see that when a company is truly halal, then there is definitely going to be more significant, relatively more significant at least, social impact and benefit for people. So that's the first thing. Now, the second thing is it's very exciting to invest in startups, right? If I show you a startup growing by 5, 10 times, and you can invest in it, you become a shareholder, you will be excited, right? If you see the huge social impact, you'll be excited as well. But the challenge is, you, it is uh, it is essentially, I would say, suicide to invest in only one company or two companies or three companies because you must diversify, right? Many of these companies will not make it eventually because they're trying to do something difficult. But if they crack the code, then they become very successful, right? So investors want to invest, but it takes time, effort, money, a lot of money to invest in many companies. So that's where our VC fund does that for the members of our angel group, right? So they don't have to spend all the time, energy, and effort. We do it. For example, in our first cohort, there were more than 200 submissions, applications to join our first cohort. We narrowed it down to 40. And when it's down to 40 right now, we're going through the screening and training and nurturing process before we identify the top 10 to invest in. Right. So both sides benefit. The startups, the companies benefit, the investors benefit. Yeah. One thing I want to add is, especially if we talk about the halal space or in the Muslim world, we are far behind when it comes to technology solutions and products and startups. We are very much underrepresented. However, we actually have a lot of talent. If you go to the top tech companies in the world, there will be good, talented Muslims there in highly strategic, influential, technical positions, right? It's just that the entrepreneurship side was lacking. Yeah, and since the pandemic, and especially in the last 9 months, we can see a surge in the number of founders and startups in the Muslim world. There's a new generation coming out, and that's also because the first batch or generation of halal startups, Muslim founders, today have achieved a degree of success. Right, so they have inspired the next generation to come up, and that's where Hassan provides capital support, facilitation for this new batch, this young batch that's coming out. Yeah.
Great. Wonderful. And sir, um, again, everybody is, you know, they work on for their own interest. That's the first and foremost thing which comes to our mind when we want to do something. And
Yeah.
to my understanding, there might be a lot of other companies which might be offering similar products. Being a potential investor, why should I choose your company, EDIS, instead of going somewhere else?
Yeah. So first of all, unfortunately, and I hope this will change, there are not too many like us that are offering VC investment that's Sharia compliant. Right. In fact, very, very few. And I hope there'll be a lot more because there's so much market and there's so much opportunity. But we still, of course, need to have our own strength. And our strength, I'll break it up to two parts. on one part, any company, any startup, any technology company that is focused on the Muslim market, halal products, Sharia compliant products, that's where we have a unique advantage. We have huge database and stakeholders and relationships in this space. So we can fast track the growth and the progress of the companies in our portfolio. Because over the years, over 10 years, we built up this goodwill. And when we were planning Hasan, one of the key things that I shared with my team was that we have so much value around us, it's impossible for us to mine it alone. It's impossible for us to gain so much value all on our own. We need to share, we need to spread, we need to give, we need to pay it forward. Right? So that's one. And for example, we have a database through our partners of 60 million Muslims. Right? So if you have a product that you want to promote, right, you just need to come and work with these partners, and you can test your product, or you can start selling your product, or you can start promoting your product to a huge database. Right? So that's definitely a very significant selling point or unique strength that we have, which is our access, relationships, and value in the Islamic economy in general. Now, beyond that, we also are very focused on forming the community. So imagine in our community right now, it's already growing. We have about 300, 400 angel investors. Right? We have 50, 60 startups, companies, and founders. We have, X number of stakeholders and relationships. So we are actively figuring out how to get this community to work closely together and to support each other, because the strength of such a community is immense. Right? So the challenge for us is, how do we help this community to synchronize, converge, and be aligned so that they can exchange value and the value can build on each other. So with all this, for the investor, what the impact on the investor is, there's a stronger portfolio, stronger number of companies that can grow and potentially give you returns in the long run.
Right. And so by looking at the portfolio, the impressive portfolio which Edith has developed over the last 10 to 12 years, I'm sure you've made a lot of progress. But of course, it's my understanding that you might have faced a lot of huge challenges as well.
Yes.
Could it be possible for you, please, to let us know as to what kind of challenges those were, and how did you overcome them? And do you think that maybe, as far as those challenges, if they are, for example, if they are related with the regulatory environment or any other issues, do you think that maybe things might become easier in the near future?
So I can highlight many challenges, but maybe I'll give two or three.
Please.
One is, we are dealing with the real world, meaning we are matching money to real companies and real projects. In the real world, there are no guarantees. Right? In the real world, there's a lot of risk. So the challenge we face is twofold on this risk component. One is to educate the user or the investor or the member of our community to get them to understand the risk. Right? That's one challenge. But sometimes people are happy, excited. They think, oh, a halal investment, I've been looking for this for so long, I'm going to put all my money in. And they don't really understand what they're doing. Right? So that's one challenge. And related to that challenge, over our 10 years, we've done different things at different points in time, and the world has changed a lot in this period. Right? So, for example, in Indonesia specifically, over the past 2 years, we've done more than 400 projects. Right? Our community has invested in more than 500 projects, and the success rate is about 97%, which is great. Right? Our investors in Indonesia making 18% per annum, they are happy. However, before the pandemic and during the pandemic, we did have a batch of projects. These were mostly real estate projects that faced significant problems and delays. Right? So we had about 18 projects that had delays and problems, and some of them have to be written off, right, because of the pandemic, or before the pandemic, certain challenges and problems. The social housing is a very unique sector or space, and we were riding on a government program, and when things were good, it was very good. right? But when things go wrong, especially during a black swan event like the pandemic, then things fall apart, right? So we had 18 bad projects, out of which 10 have been cleared over the past. Let me repeat myself. We have we had 26 bad projects. Our 26, 10 have been declared, and we're left with 16 of those today, right? So this is a challenge because investors, some of them are flexible, some of them are understanding, some of them appreciate the risk, some of them don't, right? And for those who don't, some of them assume it's like a bank. I want my money back, you know. But we don't have your money and we don't have control over the project. All we can do is to facilitate the project. So because we were doing something very new, there was confusion even internally in ethics on what's our role when something goes wrong. Because we are not set up to go and on the ground and help these companies and figure out what's happening and intervene and turn around projects, right? Turning around projects is it's a whole business in itself. We are a platform, right? So that is definitely one challenge that we faced. Um, and the other challenge is, when you do finance business, you need to be ethical internally as well, because there's a lot of opportunity to make money, a lot of opportunity to cut corners. And I say opportunity because, for those who may not have the right culture or ethics, making money is an opportunity, right? To us, these are threats, right? So we're very concerned about threats of or this kind of threat because when we look at the wider financial system, there are always this kind of things happening here and there where there's misuse of funds or fraud and so on. There's a lot of scams around. So we need to be very, very careful with the people we have, with the partners we have, with the projects that we undertake.
Being an Islamic fintech player, uh, for example, from investor perspective, uh, could it be possible for you, please, to let us know as to what rate of return should I expect as a potential investor, for example, if I invest in any of your projects?
Now, in Indonesia, it's limited to right now because of regulatory constraints, limited to local investors only. Used to be open to everyone, and it was one of the most popular products offerings that we had. But now it's limited to locals. So we have local Indonesians using our app, and we have local Indonesian banks investing in our projects. And we give about 17-18% per annum. That is the annualized return. The projects are 3 months to 6 months typically. So in 6 months, the investor can look to a profit share that's equivalent to maybe 9%, right, in 6 months. Now, for the world, for everybody else, the main offering that we currently have for investment is Hasan. But Hasan is limited to a private group, so you need to apply. And we included this barrier because we realized in the past that investors who should not be taking the risk are investing, right? Or investors who don't understand are investing. Or investors with different priorities or opposite priorities, they want low risk and they don't want to lose their money and so on, and they don't mind low returns, but they still come to us, right, which is a mismatch. So that's where we have this barrier where you have to join, you have to apply to become a member, and our team will then go through a screening process, including an interview with you before accepting you into the group, right? So once you are inside the group, then you can invest into our fund or invest into projects and companies. And for the fund, for a VC fund, it can give outsized returns. Right? Historically, VC funds have been proven to give statistically very high returns. However, the variance is very high. Right? What I mean by that is the most common outcome is a small return, but there are VCs, a portion of VCs that give very, very high returns, 30-40% per annum kind of returns. And so the average for all VCs is eventually high at about 20, 22, 25% per annum in terms of returns, right? But that's because there's a lot of them earning a little bit and a smaller portion earning huge returns. Yeah. So if anybody is looking for huge returns, this is one way you can get proper huge returns, but there's no guarantee. The chances are there, but typically you end up with more commonly end up with small returns, right? But you don't lose your money, right? So when you want to invest in something that gives you a lot of returns, usually the risk of losing your money is high, right? So in a VC fund, while there is, Nausbillah, a chance of losing your money if 50 companies fail, Nausbillah, you lose your money, right? But we believe that out of this 50, and based on the facilitation, support, and so on that we also provide, that there's a high chance that many of them will be successful, and that we'll be able to hit our target. Our targeted returns is actually 22 to 25% per annum for our investors.
And it is being a pioneer in this Islamic fintech industry, you have attracted significant support from the finance and community, from the finance community as well as general investors. So how do you foster these relationships and collaborations?
Sure. Um, well, we actually, part of our approach is to be as collaborative as possible. And all our team members know this. We try to work with as many relevant parties as possible. And actually, sometimes we are maybe a bit of learning. We try maybe too much in that sense to work with others that sometimes it backfires as well. There have been cases where we've worked with various institutions and shared a lot of information, shared a lot of ideas, shared a lot of plans, and they did some pilots with us. And after a while, they tried to do it on their own. But that happens. That's how business is. For us, we believe that our success is already set. What is due to us is already there. So it is in fact our duty to spread and share and collaborate as much as we can. As long as other parties have similar motives and intentions, we'll go out to do it. Right? So I think that um, um, it is known in the market that we're highly collaborative and facilitative and helpful. And so that attracts more people to come and work with us.
MashaAllah. And Brother Umar, you've been active in this industry for such a long period of time. So, what are the major changes? Of course, there are a lot of changes occurring almost every single day. But as far as the past is concerned, past is gone. But what do you see in the next 5 to 10 years' time? How the environment, as far as the VC funding or Islamic fintech industry is concerned, how do you think it's going to change in the next 5 to 10 years?
Sure. We can see to us, it's very clear, a very clear trend where there is already a boom in innovative, impactful halal startups. Really, I'm not just saying it because we're doing it, but this is part of the reason why we decided to come in now or to set Hasan up now, because we saw this happening, right? And there's many reasons for that. I mentioned a few earlier. There's strong demand, strong supply. Also, for example, right now there's AI, and AI is something that's very usable today. AI has been there in the background for a long time, but not very usable. Now it's highly intuitive and usable, and this has already started to disrupt the VC industry. Because today, companies don't need so much money because they can leverage on AI and they can increase their productivity by multiple folds. So that's where less money will be needed to create solutions that can have an impact. And that's where we decided we need to come in now so that we can catch these companies as they're early and we can guide them and support them in their journey. Because if not, a lot of companies go down the wrong path, they get the wrong investors, they risk maybe sometimes too much money, and then that comes back to haunt them, right? So we see this boom happening everywhere. There's so many amazing entrepreneurs. When we open up for submissions, we receive so much quality that we were quite concerned, like, because our terms are fixed, right? We invest a certain amount to get a certain amount of shares, and it's targeted to very early stage. They call it pre-seed companies, but the companies that apply for our cohort are beyond that. Maybe they are double, triple the valuation. Some of them, right, of the valuation that we were meant to serve, but they still want to come and be part of our ecosystem, right? So we're very happy to see that, because there's so much entrepreneurship and innovation happening in the Muslim world, and there's a lack of ecosystem and investors. So we are now trying to match that demand. Right now, talking about the future, right? So based on that, and based on the advances, especially in fintech, as we move forward, more and more technology and solutions will be, I guess the word is embedded in our lifestyles, right? We don't even think about using technology. And sometimes technology decides for us what your life is going to be like, what your day is going to be like, what your schedule. My schedule is dictated by my calendar. My knowledge is dictated by, GPT. My current affairs and worldview is dictated by social media, right? So that is good and dangerous.
Very bad as
Yeah,
well, of course.
yeah, it can be very, very dangerous, right? So that's where there's more and more awareness today about digital literacy and about using the digital world, and that's also feeding the growth of halal startups, right? So back to my original point, I think the Muslim world will mature in terms of startups and technology and innovation, and we will build and we will use solutions meant for us, for our lifestyles, and that extend to the rest of humanity as well.
And during our discussion, I have developed so much interest in Hasan VC funding concept. And this concept, to me, it's very interesting. But for a person who doesn't know much about your company, how should they contact you to get more information before they make a decision?
Sure. So as I mentioned, you need to become a member first. You need to apply. So anyone can go to Hasan.vc, Hasan with one S. Hasan is actually an acronym. The original phrase is Halal Super Angels, right?
Mm,
So HASAN, Hasan.
mm,
So we were a group of angel investors, so super angels. Super angels are a term used for angel investors that also contribute, also help and support, provide value, not just money, right? So that's what Hasan is. So Hasan.vc, information is there. You can reach out to our team, you can submit your interest and so on. And we are very active in facilitating and engaging with potential new members.
And last question, but not the least, what advice would you like to give to young professionals or the upcoming entrepreneurs who would like to enter this field, or even some of them they would like to join your team
Yeah.
at EDS? What advice would you like to give them? What kind of prerequisite knowledge should they have before they come to you, or anything in general?
Sure. So whether you're working and potentially looking to invest, or thinking of or just started doing your own business, right? Either way, I think the key, very key point, it sounds very simple, but it's a very critical point, is to start. That's the most important thing. For investors, today we're living in a high inflation environment, getting higher and higher compared to 10 years ago, 20 years ago. So you must invest, if not, you're losing your wealth, right? And for those who want to do business, you don't need to leave everything and jump into the deep end. You can only start a business on the side. You can only start a business small and grow it organically over time, right? Because today the world has changed so much that um, we have this flexibility and access to investments that may not be so large. Like in the past, only rich people can invest, only wealthy people can invest. Today, anyone can invest, right? There's all sorts of options, right? And for business, it's the same. The barrier has been broken. But the one thing I want to share or add that I think is very fundamental, aside from that logic, is the mindset, which is very, very important. That wealth, talent, our time, these are not ours. Right? That's what I like to share a lot. And this is not my theory. This is as in Islam we know this. It is given to us. It is entrusted to us. It is a blessing to us. Right. So how are you spending your time, effort, and money? Where are you investing? Where are you putting your brain power and your efforts? Right? Whether you're an investor or an entrepreneur, this this mindset is very, very critical. And if you are conscious about this, the fact that I've been blessed with money, I've been blessed with time, I've been blessed with talent and capability, and I'll be questioned later on how I used it, then naturally you'll start to put it in better places or in the best places that provide returns as well as impact.
Thank you so much. It's been really wonderful talking to you. And inshallah, I hope a lot of people, potential investors, as well as future professionals in this industry and other community members, they will be able to learn a lot from the discussion which we had with you.
Thank you for your excellent questions and
Thank
your
you so much.